Direct Connection is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for Direct Connection. Coming up in our program tonight, free legal advice for seniors and how to get it. But first tonight, beating the risk factors in preventing or delaying diabetes. Joining us for this week's Your Health segment is Dr. Nanette Steinle, Associate Professor of Medicine at the University of Maryland School of Medicine and endocrinologist at the University of Maryland Diabetes and Endocrinology Center, also interim chief of the endocrine section at the Baltimore VA. Doctor, thank you for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Let's start at the beginning with diabetes and the difference between type 1 and type 2.
Sure. In general, we think about the two broad classifications of diabetes. Type 1 typically occurs in childhood, but not always, and is a disorder involving lack of insulin production. In type 2 diabetes, usually we see this happening more often in adults, although with the problem of obesity, children are also being more affected with type 2 diabetes. And this is a problem where initially there's overproduction of insulin or insulin resistance, followed then by reduced amounts of insulin, which causes the blood sugar to become elevated.
How big a role does weight and obesity play in the development of type 2?
We believe that obesity and weight are major factors in the development of type 2 diabetes. And actually, the diabetes prevention study that we're going to talk about in a little bit showed that individuals who are successful with losing weight, for each approximately 2 pounds of weight loss, the reduction of diabetes risk is about 15%.
So that makes a major category of illness suffered by many, many Americans somewhat preventable.
We do believe that it is somewhat preventable. There was a large randomized prospective trial that was conducted that showed that individuals who ate a healthy diet, primarily low-calorie, healthy fats, and exercised, and that wasn't high-intensity exercise, walking 150 minutes or about 30 minutes a day, 150 minutes a week, 30 minutes a day. If they lost about 7% of their excess body weight, their reduction for diabetes type 2 was about 60%.
Is there a tipping point where you can be a little bit heavy, but if your body mass index is over a certain number, then the risk really jumps? Or is it more gradual?
It seems to probably be more gradual, that the behaviors, the lifestyle that contribute to obesity, inactivity, overeating are probably cumulative. And then as an individual gains weight and continues inactive behaviors, overeating, the risk for diabetes gradually increases.
All right, well, let's focus in on the diet stuff a little bit. And before you were a medical doctor, you were a nutritionist?
Correct.
And you've brought a cupful of cereal with you, which we appreciate. Thank you for that. What's the point? And that looks like a 1-cup measure you have?
It is. So the point is that when we promote healthy eating behaviors, one thing that's important are the types of foods that we choose. And the data would suggest that the healthy foods includes those that are high in fiber, and that would include whole grains, plant-based diet versus an animal-based diet. But in addition to that, portion control. So it's important to read the labels on foods and pay attention to what it says 1 serving size. And for this particular cereal, which is a whole grain oat cereal, 1 serving size is 1 cup. So here we have a small bowl, and just so the viewers can see that 1 cup fills about half of the bowl. And so if someone is just filling the bowl, they may be having 2 serving sizes. And so it's easy to have extra calories coming in to the body without really being aware that, oh, maybe this is a little bit more than I should be eating.
because none of us measure it that way. But it's helpful to be able to look at it and see that that's actually the serving size when you look at the calories on the box.
Correct. So in this case, one could perhaps use the same bowl each time and say, okay, I know that half of this bowl is one serving size, and then fill the bowl each time rather than having to measure it.
The biggest problem, of course, is the second bowl and the bowl after that. And once you get going, especially with something appetizing and maybe with a little sugar on it, it's hard to stop. Sometimes
it is. And again, being disciplined and finding other activities rather than sometimes, we eat for entertainment rather than for nutrition. And once we've had what we know to be the food that we need, we can go and take a walk rather than having a second bowl of cereal.
What's the role for genetics in type 2 diabetes?
Well, clearly there is a role for genetics, and studies have shown that specific genetic mutations increase the risk for type 2 diabetes.
That's why we have the glass of water and we won't even measure it.
Certain mutations in genes increase the risk for diabetes. The good news is that in this very large randomized trial that I mentioned earlier called the Diabetes Prevention Project, blood was taken. And when the investigators then went back and performed studies looking at whether or not the participants in the diabetes prevention trial carried these variants, these gene risks, even the people who had the genetic risks that engaged in healthy lifestyle, their chance of diabetes was reduced.
So if somebody's from a family where there are a lot of cases of diabetes and you suspect that it's in the genes, and you may feel a little like it's destiny, it's not necessarily?
That's correct. The good news is that being active, healthy diet can still reduce the chances of diabetes in a person who's at risk genetically.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question about diabetes, you can give us a call. We'll have the number up on the screen. You can also tweet your questions. Our Twitter address is @MPT News. One of the really interesting things is what happens with bariatric surgery when somebody has the stomach stapling or the variants of that for obesity and they lose weight. What happens to their diabetes, and how likely is that to change?
Often, very soon after the bariatric surgical procedure is completed, even before significant weight loss has occurred, we see improvements in glucose homeostasis. And we're really trying to understand what that may be about. It could be that the hormones that help regulate insulin and blood sugar are impacted by the surgery. It could be that certainly post-operatively, the person who had surgery is eating, consuming much less food during that time. And so we're still really trying to understand what the mechanisms are. But in most people, in many people, the surgery has been shown to help either remit the diabetes or improve it greatly.
Is there anything on the medication front, certainly medications for diabetes, but in terms of diabetes prevention, somebody who's maybe beginning to show symptoms, is there anything?
The diabetes prevention trial that I mentioned earlier did contain 2 arms with medications. One was stopped. One arm was stopped because the medication was withdrawn from the market. But the other arm continued, and the medication that was used is metformin, which is a drug that is generic, inexpensive, widely available, and used to treat type 2 diabetes. And metformin was beneficial. The extent of reduction of risk was not as dramatic. It was about 30% compared to approximately 60% for diet and exercise. But there is benefit to metformin and likely some other medications that we have that improve insulin sensitivity.
And diet and exercise are free, and you look better as well. Let's take a phone call. Washington, D.C., this is Linda. Linda, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I was calling to find out Is developing diabetes part of the aging process?
Interesting. Thank you very much.
So the studies do show that as we age, our chances or our risk for diabetes does increase. And so I would answer yes to the viewer's question that it is part of the aging process. The cells that produce insulin become, as part of the aging process, less effective. And the interesting thing is, though, in the diabetes prevention trial, it was the older people who benefited the most from diet and exercise.
Okay, and when you talked earlier about diet and exercise, and on the exercise side, you talked about walking. Does it have to be any more strenuous than that, or does a good walk on a regular basis do it?
A good walk, 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, is what's been shown to be helpful. So it's, as you said, not expensive, no memberships required, as long as there's a safe place to walk. Many people will walk indoors at a local shopping mall, for example, if it's too hot or too cold, and a good pair of walking shoes is really all that's required.
Prince William County, Virginia, this is John. John, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm a physician in Manassas, Virginia.
Yes, sir.
And I developed the influenza, and what happened was I was really sick, and I was pushing fluids, and I was drinking some soda. Well, then my vision blurred, and I developed diabetes, the type 2 diabetes. So I wonder, we know that after influenza, many people develop Parkinson's disease. I wonder if it's common for people to develop diabetes after having a bout of influenza. I think the influenza virus attacks the pancreas.
Interesting. Thank you for the phone call.
Yes.
So there are data that suggests that viral illnesses may precede the onset of actually both type 1 and perhaps type 2 diabetes. The inflammatory process that occurs during an acute illness is thought to be active or part of the process that's involved in the development of diabetes.
Now, what's pre-diabetes?
The term pre-diabetes is applied when the blood sugar is a little bit higher than normal, but not quite to the level where we would draw the line and say, okay, this is diabetes. And the studies again show that pre-diabetes, in terms of risk factors for cardiovascular disease, the risk for cardiovascular disease is increased in prediabetes as it is in persons with diabetes. So we care very much about the prediabetes situation.
Let's take another call from Washington. This is Bruce. Bruce, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
I want to know, diabetes is hereditary in my family. I'm think I'm metformin. I want to know, what can I do to my chances of controlling my diabetes?
Yes, sir.
I just had surgery too.
I'm sorry, what sort of surgery?
I had surgical surgery. They had removed 2 discs out of my back.
Oh, my.
The
Okay.
C5 and C3.
Sir, thank you for the call. Best of luck. And that's basically what you're talking about here. Family history, how to prevent it.
Right. I'm not sure if the caller said that he has diabetes or he's concerned about reducing his risk for diabetes.
That's what I heard with the family history of it.
So the situation is a person with a strong family history of diabetes, eating a healthy diet, plant-based, low-fat, energy balanced, has been shown to reduce the risk. So I would encourage this caller to be active. Now, he had surgery on the disc in his back of their cervical that would affect his arms. If he can still walk, take a good walk. Consider maybe a stationary bicycle if he's concerned about being outdoors, but being active and
Let me ask this: who does he see, or someone in a similar situation? Not a diabetes patient at this point, we don't think, concerned about it. Family physician, or at what point do you see a specialist?
What I would suggest, if the viewers have access to the internet, there are many places where one can get good information. American Diabetes Association, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, National Institutes of Health, National Institutes of Diabetes and Kidney Diseases, or NIDDK, the American Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, all have very good information on their websites about diabetes prevention. Certainly, a family physician could also be someone to engage. There are certified diabetes educators that would know in the community that would know about diabetes prevention as well.
Let's go to Cecil County. This is Vicki. Vicki, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm calling about reading in professional papers and association between the development of diabetes with the medication Lipitor.
Thank you very much. Lipitor is a cholesterol drug?
Lipitor is a cholesterol-lowering medication in the family that we call statins. And there has been a fair amount of question in the scientific community about this association that shows that perhaps individuals who take a statin may be at increased risk for type 2 diabetes. And we wouldn't say at this point that there's a cause and effect, but there is an association. And it seems, though, that the individuals who are more at risk for developing diabetes are also those individuals who have higher cholesterol. So is it something metabolic, or is it the drug? We haven't really sorted that out yet.
Before we go, we've been talking about diabetes for a while, and people might be wondering about symptoms. I mean, how do you know that you ought to be concerned, and is a blood test still the way to diagnose it?
The blood test is still the way to diagnose diabetes. Some people never have symptoms, and that's one of the concerns. Practically 1 in 3 Americans who are at risk, one of those persons will have diabetes and not know it. So we do recommend routine, right now we recommend routine screening after the age of 40. So your primary doctor could do a fasting blood test to check for diabetes.
Very good. Dr. Nanette Steinle of the University of Maryland School of Medicine, University of Maryland Medical Center, VA Medical Center in Baltimore. Thank you for making time for us.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Just ahead tonight, options that you may not be aware of for seniors looking for legal help. We'll be right back.
Tonight on MPT.
Antiques Roadshow has a lot to share from our visit to Charleston, West Virginia.
To me, it's like eye candy. It draws you in from across the room.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Thanks, Frank. Frank's smiling somewhere, I'm sure.
I'm sure I am.
You won't want to miss these discoveries next time on Antiques Roadshow.
Tonight at 8 on MPT. Next time on Father Brown.
Let's live dangerously.
A race car driving free spirit has a lot of enemies. And when she's killed on the track, there's no shortage of suspects, including a confession.
I killed her.
Father Brown doesn't think things add up.
That looks like blood. She was killed inside the car.
But Inspector Sullivan has finally had enough.
You've been a thorn in my side ever since I stepped into this parish.
Father Brown. Tonight at 10 on MPT.
What's in store for this week's Chesapeake Collectibles?
Have you heard of Lady Luck?
I have.
This is the definitive Lady Luck.
This is a country piece.
The name is scratched onto the barrel.
Really wonderful pieces.
There are always people who are willing to deal in objects that are perhaps not legal anymore.
We'll have that and more on the next Chesapeake Collectibles.
Thursday night at 8 on MPT.
Tonight on MPT2.
On Masterpiece.
How much of this do we have to sell?
All of it.
Ah, carry on. This is England. No one carries on without tea.
You didn't say goodbye last night. Is everything all right?
Harry.
I don't know how to tell you. You know a lot of rich people. Regan will be pleased.
Don't do this. I'm a shop girl. You're the boss's son. We're from different worlds.
Mr. Barrett's summoning an emergency board meeting. They mean to oust me.
Mr. Selfridge. On Masterpiece.
Tonight at 8 on MPT2.
Joining us now in the studio is Susan Francis, Deputy Director of the Maryland Volunteer Lawyers Service. Susan, thank you for coming by. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Volunteer Lawyers Service has been around since '81.
That's right.
Who do you serve?
We serve low-income Marylanders across the spectrum, across most of the state. So that's seniors, but also families, individuals, really anyone that's in need of legal assistance. We're really targeting the group of folks that otherwise would have to navigate these issues without having an attorney. And so we provide that bridge.
Civil as opposed to criminal
Exactly,
issues.
right. So in criminal matters, you have a right to an attorney. In civil matters, you do not.
Within the area of elder law or issues that would affect senior citizens, what types of matters do you typically see?
Well, you know, it's interesting. There's sort of two answers to that question. First, we see legal issues that absolutely have a predominant impact on seniors. So, for example, we do estate planning matters to help seniors think about how they want to be cared for, how their home, the items that they've worked very hard for in their life, how that might be dealt with. We deal with guardianship issues, tax sales, a variety of foreclosures that sometimes impact seniors, but we also handle other matters that maybe don't predominantly impact seniors, but have a particularly harsh impact on seniors. So, for example, in Baltimore City, you're going to find a lot of senior citizens that rent. So if they have a landlord-tenant matter and they lose their housing, that's much more difficult if they have a mobility issue, and they may have a multi-generational situation in which they're caring for a grandchild, and so them losing their house and having to start over is a lot more difficult than for another individual.
I looked at your annual report, and it talked about the thousands of cases dealt with. This was for 2014. And if you figured out what the legal fees would have been for all those cases, it's a lot of money.
Absolutely. And really, you know, we're talking about just the most fundamental issues for folks. They're keeping their house, keeping their family, keeping their jobs. And these are folks that otherwise would have to go unrepresented and would not have assistance from an attorney. And so those volunteer attorneys really do help step into that gap.
Where do the attorneys come from?
Everywhere. We are blessed to have really wonderful volunteer attorneys from law firms, or from large law firms, small law firms, government officials, solo practitioners, the clinics at the law schools. It's really everyone from all specters pitch in together to help with the legal need.
So I don't forget to ask, anyone out there with an interest or a need, how do they get in touch?
Absolutely, they can. And I would say my organization provides legal services, but there's a variety of legal services across the state. So they can contact my organization at, I think you have the number, but it's also 800-510-0050, or on our webpage, which is mvlslaw.org. Or they can go to the Maryland Legal Services Corporation webpage, and that lists all the legal services providers across the state. And if they get to one of us, we will get them in the right place.
For big picture, all of these important issues, matters, in thinking about advanced directives, it ought to be, speaking as a non-lawyer, it ought to be easier for somebody to do it without a lawyer. I mean, do you wind up providing help to somebody where this shouldn't have required a lawyer to do it?
Well, you know, we've ended up in a lot of matters where it shouldn't require a lawyer because it shouldn't have happened in the first place. So we, you know, for example, we have senior citizens that may have got into a debt situation and their Social Security is being garnished, which is illegal. That can't be done. But it's really difficult for a senior citizen to navigate that on their own without an attorney. And so there are those kind of issues that we come up with. But even with something like an advance directive and a will and other planning documents, it is helpful to talk to an attorney just because there may be an issue that you might not even thought of. That might be an issue that they might be able to help you with. But as we've already talked about, for many people, it's not the highest issue on their priority list or the highest issue in terms of their budget, in terms of paying for an attorney to do that.
Last question, just a few seconds. If somebody's aware of a senior who may be in need of services, but maybe they're a potential victim as an older person, what do you advise?
get in contact with us. We'll help navigate that. We do, unfortunately, there are seniors are very susceptible to identity theft and some other fraud issues. And start with us, and we'll try to get them in the right direction if we can't deal with it in our shop.
Well, you do great work. We're glad you could stop by. Susan Francis of the Maryland Volunteer Lawyers Service. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for Direct Connection. We're back Thursday with your money and business. Have a good night.
Your health segments are a co-production of Maryland Public Television and the University of Maryland Medical System.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.